What's going on, everybody? I'm Justin. I'm Joe and Nick.
Hey, what's going on?
And today we will be talking about our Week 12 Starts and Sits podcast. And it's Week 12. The fantasy playoff starts in a couple of weeks. So this is a week you got to get a must-win in.
Yeah, every week from here on out is pretty much must win, and we're going to help you do that this week.
So you want to start off with your start quarterbacks?
Yeah, my start quarterbacks for this week are Kirk Cousins and Eli Manning. They're both in the same game. Kirk Cousins has been really hot, for the exception of last week against the Panthers. And Eli Manning, I expect big things from him. Jameis Winston just threw for 5 touchdowns against them, and I expect these guys to both put up solid QB1 numbers. Maybe even a little more for Eli.
Yeah, you just even said Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is a guy who is coming off a huge week, and his schedule is looking good moving on forward. So if he's on the waivers, he's definitely a good quarterback one option moving on forward. My start quarterbacks is Brian Hoyer. This is a guy you're probably not going to start any other week except this week, but he's versing an awful Saints defense who is probably the worst against the pass. So I would definitely start Hoyer if you're in a must-need for a quarterback. And I like Matt Stafford on Thursday Night Football. He's hot right now. He's coming off a big week, and we know how he performs on Thursday. He's a great play this week.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He's really been playing well on Thursdays. My 6 QBs for the week are Big Ben and Ryan Tannehill. Ben Roethlisberger, he's going up against tough matchup. I know he's banged up, and I know he did perform well last week, but against the Seahawks, I don't expect big things from him. And Ryan Tannehill, you probably drafted him as your QB1. He hasn't been that at all. He might be on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues, and I would not recommend streaming him.
Moving on to my 6 quarterbacks, I don't like Andy Dalton this week. He was red hot in the beginning of the season, but I think he's cooled off a little bit, and he has a tough matchup against the Rams. So I would sit him and even play a guy like Winston or Hoyer this week over him. And I don't like Brock Osweiler this week. I know he's coming off a nice week, but I think there's better options out there, and I think that the Pats are going to prepare for him on another primetime game.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people traded for Dalton at the beginning of the season. He's been red hot. Since then, he cooled down. He's got a horrible matchup this week in the Rams. Moving on to the running back position, my start running backs for the week are T.J. Yeldon and
Great matchup.
Yeah, Buck Allen. They both have good matchups against the Browns and the Chargers. Buck Allen is going to get the first crack at the starting job. I think he's going to be a running back too the rest of your way for your fantasy season. And I think T.J. Yeldon's going to continue his pace as a rock-solid RB2 in the great matchup.
I think he could even be on the RB1 map this week against that great matchup. I think he could put like 17, 18 points this week. Moving on to my start running backs, is DeMarco Murray and Jonathan Stewart. Jonathan Stewart's been red hot in that offense where, they're undefeated. They've been playing great. And it all starts with that run game. I definitely think he's going to continue against the Dallas Cowboys. They've really been bad against the run. And I also like DeMarco Murray, who's been a guy you drafted as an RB1, and he's really been struggling, but I expect him to get back on track on Thursday Night Football against a weak Lions defense.
Yeah, DeMarco Murray really needs to get back on track. The sit-em running backs for this week are Gio Bernard and D'Angelo Williams. D'Angelo Williams, he had the big first week since Bell got hurt, and then he slowed down and disappointed against the Browns. I don't think he's going to put up RB1 numbers against the Seahawks this week. And Gio Bernard, the Bengals running back situation has really been a mess. Going up against the Rams, I don't expect him to have a big day.
Like you said it, the Seahawks defense have been really good against the run, but against the pass, you could start those guys now. Like, you could feel safe playing Martavis Bryant and Antonio Brown now. Moving on to my sit running backs, I don't like Latavius Murray this week. He would have had an awful game last week, but it was saved by that touchdown, a 1-yard touchdown that saved his day. Otherwise, he would have had 2 points. And I don't like Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller is a guy you probably can't sit, but going up against the Jets defense, temper your expectations a little bit.
Yeah, moving on. My starting wide receivers for the week are Randall Cobb and Travis Benjamin. The Packers offense is starting to heat up on Thursday Night Football. They're going up against the Bears. I expect a big game from Cobb. He's going to produce like a wide receiver 1 this week. Travis Benjamin is my other guy. He had a couple of breakout weeks in the beginning of the season, cooled down, and now he's starting to gain steam again. Josh McCown back at quarterback in the great matchup against the Ravens. I expect Josh McCown to be able to hit him on a couple of bombs. I expect big things.
Yeah, the Ravens defense has been really bad. Moving on to my star wide receivers, I like Mike Evans this week. even though he's going up against Vontae Davis, they've been generally bad and against the pass. And we know that Jameis Winston threw 5 touchdown passes last week. I think they're going to continue that pace. I think they're going to continue on that connection. I know he's been dropping passes, but that doesn't hurt his fantasy value. He's still going to get targets. I think he's going to be a borderline wide receiver 1 at this point moving on forward. And Larry Fitzgerald, who's at this week is a locked-in wide receiver 1. I think he's going to be like a top 5 wide receiver this week, going up against San Francisco 49ers.
Also, Vontae Davis might not play this week, so that makes Mike Evans even more appealing.
Yeah.
Moving on to the wide receivers, I have Stephon Diggs, who came on big weeks, cooled down, but he did bounce back. He had a nice game, maybe not in fantasy, but he did have a nice real-life game, but I wouldn't start him this week. Falcons D is very underrated against the pass, and Alshon Jeffrey, you probably can't sit him, but you really got to temper your expectations. He might not even play, and if he does play, he could just be a decoy.
Yeah, I agree. He was a decoy 2 weeks ago when he played. He only had like 4 or 5 points. That hurt a lot of people. In a must-win game, you can't start him, and he's probably not even going to play. But if he doesn't play, what do you think about Marcus Wilson this week?
Marcus Wilson, I definitely think Alshon Jeffrey owners need to have Marcus Wilson, and if Jeffrey doesn't play, you
Just
start
plug
him.
in.
He did have the big week against the Broncos last week, who were very good against the Bears.
They only let up one 100-yard receiver until Marcus Wilson. Moving on to my sit wide receivers, I don't like A.J. Green this week, a guy you drafted as your wide receiver 1. He hasn't been performing like that. He's been struggling. I know he's going up against Patrick Peterson last week, but even when he was hurt, they weren't connecting. And I know that he has another tough matchup going up against St. Louis this week. And Jordan Matthews is borderline droppable right now. Don't put him in your lineups no matter how good the matchup is. We thought that Mark Sanchez was going to save his season, but that didn't happen. And this offense is just a mess other than DeMarco Murray right now.
Yeah,
they run the same plays.
You can't really start Jordan Matthews.
All he does is those drag routes, and he connects. It's a mess, that offense.
Moving on to tight ends, I start tight ends Gary Barnidge and Delaney Walker. With Josh McCown back at QB, Barnidge value goes back through the roof again. And Delaney Walker, he's been hot the past few weeks, and he has the great matchup against the Raiders, who are awful against tight ends.
I agree with you. Moving on to my star tight ends, I like Crockett Gilmore this week. I know Joe Flacco's hurt, so Matt Schwab's probably going to go in there and check it down a lot. I like him a lot in PPR values. PPR leagues, I think he could be a nice low to mid-range streaming tight end option. And Antonio Gates, I know Gates struggled last week, but expect him to get back on track. Be a locked-in tight end 1 against the weak Jaguars defense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Matt Schaub is going to look for Crockett Gilmore as a safety blanket. I like.
And who else do they have? They don't have Smith. I mean, Kamar Aiken, but expect him to, and no Forsett, another bummer, but expect him to go to Gilmore a lot.
Moving on to the tight ends, I have Jason Witten and Benjamin Watson. Both these guys have been really inconsistent throughout the season. I know Witten might not have had Romo, but going up against the Panthers, I can't really play him this week.
They've been great.
And Benjamin Watson, you can't really predict what's going to happen with the Saints tight end situation week to week.
And the Texans have been tough against
tight ends. And the Texans have been tough, so you can't really play any Saints tight ends this week.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to my sit tight ends, I don't like Charles Clay. Talking about tough defenses against tight ends, the Chiefs been one of the best with that linebacking core. Houston, Holly, Johnson, a very stacked linebacking core. I know Clay's coming off a few big weeks. I would keep him out of your lineup this week and go get a guy like Gilmore. And my other sit tight end is Jordan Cameron. He has a tough matchup. I know he had a touchdown last week, but once again, I think there's better options out there.
Yeah, there's definitely better options out there. Well, last but not least, the sleeper defense. I have the Chiefs. They've been very good on their win streak since Jamal Charles has went down. Even though they're playing the Bills, they might not be a terrible offense, but I still expect Chiefs to be a top 5 play this week.
And my sleeper defense is the Browns. Somebody probably could go up and pick up off the waivers right now. Going up against a backup quarterback and a backup running back, I think it's a great sleeper option for you. And that will do it for us. If you have any questions, make sure you tweet us at FF in the Zone. Make sure you subscribe below for more daily fantasy content. And thank you for watching, everybody.